Hello Internet and hello Final Fantasy fans, I'm Jackie Fox and today we're going to be talking about the Iron Golem critical threat. I suppose he is still a golem despite the fact that he's called Iron Giant. In any case, this is the man of metal who will test your metal, and today we're going to be getting to a point where you're going to get a lot of options on how to beat him. We're going to start with that, in fact, instead of me showing you the particular builds that I used. But I'm also going to show you 3 different builds that I've used to clear this, and one of them that can clear Ex2 on auto, and really without any struggle for myself. You might also be asking, how would I use or should I use the new weapons, and we'll be answering that question as well. So first, let's take a look at the things that you really need to manage the Iron Giant, because a big deal with the Iron Giant is going to be his buffs. He has some really strong buffs and you're going to need to be able to mitigate them. So as we head into our discussion, let's talk about some of the rarest buffs first, and of course that's going to bring us to a new piece of equipment, because the only way to break water right now is with Zack's Black Whiskers. Now, this is a little bit handicapped in its physical defense breaking capabilities, but it can do that as well. So this is a way of applying perhaps the most debuffing power in one hit. However, its floor is only a medium potency, so you're only going to be able to get 2 ticks down on defense instead of 3, which would be possible with other things. Next is water damage, and I'm looking specifically for single target. There were a couple of AoE skills, but I'm completely ignoring them because their modifiers, I think, just aren't high enough to really be able to compete with the higher efficiency of a 3 ATB cost materia. So the 2 that you're going to be looking at for your DPSs are going to be the Maritime Sword for Cloud and the Serpent Eater for Lucia. If you have either of these weapons built, you should be able to do pretty impressive damage to the boss. However, I think that this is probably one of the least important things. What you really want is breaks. First, physical attack breaks are going to keep your team safe. You have the leather gloves from Tifa, the slick beetle from Matt, or the northern lights from Sephiroth. But this is a more physical attack, so you may want a more physical Sephiroth build to pull this off, and I know some of you out there don't have it. Also, if you want a medium physical attack break, you could also go with the Cerulean Raven or Sledfang, which are the limit breaks for Lucia and Red 13, respectively. Both of those are going to break all of the offensive stats, and naturally that's going to cause a 2-tier break for physical attack in either case. So not quite as high, and also not nearly as repeatable, but it could add you a little bit of extra breaking power that doesn't require your ATB to your team. For physical defense breaks, we're looking at for the high potency, and you almost certainly want one of these because, boy, he really puts up a wall when he puts up a wall. So these are going to quickly allow you to plow through that and go all the way down to 3 ticks down for defense, and that's going to be the Hard Edge for Cloud, the Cutlass for Zack, the War Machine for Barret, the Piece of Cake for Glenn, and then, as kind of an honorable mention, the Black Whiskers again for Zack, because this is going to give you only 2 layers down, and there's going to be a couple other pieces of equipment that have a similar issue. That's going to be the Iron Collar, which is the event weapon. This is for Red 13. Additionally, things that'll break 2 tiers are Somersault and Mind Blow, the LBs of Tifa and Barret, respectively. Again, not repeatable and only 2 tiers, so this isn't the ideal way. I wouldn't depend upon it. However, it's a good way to add some breaking power in through your LBs because, and I didn't mention this the first time, but just elemental damage isn't great in this fight outside of water, so Espers seem to be really limited in what they can do. And of course the Sun Umbrella can break 1 tier at a time, down to 2 tiers below. So, kind of the worst of both worlds. But it can do the job. Just very slowly. For physical defense buffs, I don't think that this is super necessary, and you may not have much time to use them, especially the single target ones. But for a high defense boost, you're looking at the Butterfly Edge for Cloud, the Assault Gun, or the Lefko Calypsy for Barrett, one of those being an event weapon that you could very well have maxed out. The Defender for Zack, the Torn Wing, and the Mithril Type 0 Katana for Sephiroth. So there's another piece of event gear that you could have maxed out that would have a good buff for this. And I'm going to bring one of these with me, at least for my Sephiroth builds. I'm going to bring the Torn Wing. But again, I don't really use the physical defense buffs very often. However, the ones I do use actually a little bit more often are the medium defense buffs. But they're all AoE defense buffs. They last a little bit shorter, but if you time them right, or if you kind of have a unit you can devote to it, you can just have them sit there and keep applying this. So that'd be the Mithril Rod for Aerith, the Hardcore Squad for Glenn, the Gigantic Shield LB for Matt, or the Lunatic High LB for Red 13. And like with most LBs, these are, aren't going to be as repeatable. Although I do want to say that, at least for Somersault, which I've mentioned before, that actually charges really quickly. So it is surprisingly repeatable. It's just not going to give you the bang for the buck all at one time that you're probably going to want or need. And then finally, let's talk about some combos. So some units that have two good pieces of equipment for this would be Cloud as a breaker DPS, Hard Edge to break physical defense, and the Maritime Sword to just plow into the boss. Zack can also break physical defense with the Cutlass or the Black Whiskers. And personally, I'm running both of these, and it's a weird decision. It's not ideal at all, but the Black Whiskers is the only way to break water defense, so I'm kind of using both of these. Matt can also use the Prime Number as his healing weapon. You may not necessarily need a healer in here, but the Prime Number would be really great as, especially as your primary weapon, because one of its materia slots will boost the amount of time that buffs and debuffs are applied, which will help with the Slick Beetle, which is a physical attack debuffer. Then we have Sephiroth with the Torn Ring and the Northern Lights. This is a physical Sephiroth build, and it works pretty well, actually. It's not ideal, maybe not my favorite way of doing this, and maybe something like, even like Tifa, maybe even Healer Tifa, which is something that I still kind of want to try for this, but I didn't try in time for this video. And then finally we have the Glenn with defense breaking Piece of Cake and the Pumpkin Lamppost, which is his new weapon, which is going to be super enabling for physical damage once you've fully broken defense. So this guy's just going to ramp up your team's damage with this build. My first team that I'm going to show you is Cloud, Aerith, and Zack. Zack is my breaker here. Again, one of the things that I'm prioritizing for in all of my empty slots, because this isn't like super materia dependent, I'm finding, I'm really focusing on physical defense or HP boosting, just to help me survive some of the big hits. Although if my characters are doing what they're supposed to be doing, if I brought my physical attack into buffs especially, then I shouldn't have too much trouble with surviving things, especially since I'm bringing a healer as well. So really, I should be pretty safe in this fight, but I haven't quite figured out what I'm doing with this yet, so it may be a little bit harder. Later in the video, I will get this down a little bit better. This is actually, I think, my second run. So I still was figuring out what I was doing, but I had a good idea of how it would work from the earlier fights. So starting out the fight, you want to kind of hold off on doing anything because you want to wait for the boss to buff himself, raise his physical attack, and that's when you want to start with your physical attack breaks. That's really going to be your first priority in this fight, is to keep that damage low, because a Grand Sword is coming right away. If you can get it down to neutral, you can definitely survive, but if you want to be really safe, you can actually bring this to 1 or 2 tiers below, which is what I'm doing here. Because I'm only doing this with D-Brave, because I don't have someone with a physical attack down skill here, I can only break this 1 tier at a time and to 1 tier below full. Okay, so now we need to switch over to our physical defense breaker. And for me, that's going to be Zac. You don't necessarily have to switch. All of his skills are going to do that. So unless he's using Water Blow, which is unlikely given how high the defense is, he's going to be doing this automatically for himself. But I also just wanted to check in on him. Also, you know, you can kind of see him choosing those things. He gets highlighted, and I think he's important for this. Like, this guy is on all of my teams, essentially. Not that he has to be, I just don't have, like, the hard edge for Cloud. I would really love to run Maritime Sword hard edge. Just don't have it. And I think if I did that, I would probably drop Zac entirely and wouldn't even be using his new weapon. Like, really, if you have that, you don't necessarily need the water breaking. Although, I guess, in combination, that would be quite a bit. And we are going to see a team that's going to run the Maritime Sword and defense breaks and water breaks. So we'll get to see what that would look like. Just not all on Cloud. Okay, so we're really trying to break that defense all the way down because I've got some LBs to send. So now that we've got physical defense all the way down, we're going to try to max out our damage here. And again, in my experience, the Espers that I was trying to summon weren't even doing this much damage. Shiva especially was doing pretty bad, but I don't have her modifier nearly as high. But again, I'm using like Hellfire and Diamond Dust, so and my Hellfire is like max potency too. So just big damage on the LBs. I had them on damage dealers, and still it wasn't really doing the thing. So I'm working on debraving now. Again, we have our defenses completely broken, both water and physical defense, although that is fading fast, and I am slowly working through and debraving. Okay, so we have 1 tier up with Grand Sword. Let's see what kind of damage that does. Probably a lot. Okay. And for some of you, especially if you aren't fully healed, that's going to be a KO. This is one of the reasons why I think a physical attack breaker is so important for this fight. Doing this 1 tier at a time was enough to get through it, but it was awkward. Really, having more power in that respect would be really helpful here. Okay, so we've got full defensive breaks, so let's go on to the water blow. Okay, so short fuse is a little bit scary. That style of buff is, as far as I can tell, unbreakable or unremovable. At least through like my own skills. We can break around it though, but it won't fully break that. He'll still have the buff, he'll just also have a debuff in addition to it. So that's kind of scary, and if you see that come out, you want to try to beat him as quickly as you can. That is definitely the danger zone. Now we've got Sephiroth in the mix, and I'll show you the build for this afterwards, but it really hasn't changed too much. I got Debrave off of Aerith, and now that's going to be accomplished through Radiant Aurora on Sephiroth. And as you can see with that, I was able to get his offensive stats pretty low. To the point where that's going to be pretty easy to heal back up from. I wouldn't have needed a ton of physical defense or a ton of HP to really survive that. And if I could have gotten one more in there, then I could have broken him like well below even that. So could have really nailed him then. Trying to get my maximum debuffs in now, and then I'm going to go in with the LB combo, which will hopefully also ramp Sephiroth's damage. Okay, so Mighty Guard is going to bring in a bunch of tiers of defense. But don't worry, we come ready to break that. And really, I don't think I've used Aerith for healing other than her LB. I've really just been using her LB for the most part. And I mean, this is an auto. Technically, this team can very, very well do this in auto, but I'm still at a place where I'm kind of figuring it out. Besides, I want you to see kind of my best run. I don't want you to see my laziest run, necessarily. Just in case you want to know how to play, in case you're a little bit weaker than this, and you need a little extra help getting over the hump. Okay, brakes are gone. We're going to reapply those. Water and defense is already up. Now we've got the unstoppable attack. So he fixes defense too. Nope. Maybe it was a visual glitch. I don't know. Physical attack -3, so I'm doing as much as I can to mitigate that. Physical defense down 3 as well. But he got it back. See, this guy really likes buffing his attack and defense, and that's where a lot of his power as a boss comes from. Without that, as long as you can remove those things using your debuffs, then you should be able to keep on even ground with this guy and definitely take him down. And again, not even with like a lot of healing either. In fact, I think this next run is going to show that healing isn't that important. Now, I'm not a mat player. I haven't built up my mat, and I haven't really built up many of his weapons either. I need a much better prime number than this, and this is one of many level 70 pieces of gear on these teams. But with a little bit of practice, even a low modifier like 53% healing and kind of low healing stats, low HP, just not the stats that I would want for this fight. Because he's level 50. I mean, if he were level 55, this would be a little bit easier for him. But even with all of those disadvantages, actually, I think the prime number, like being a first copy 5-star, is maybe one of the bigger problems. That's really nerfing my healing power, I think. But even with that, because he has a very powerful physical attack down, and debuff extension. He's actually a really powerful way of keeping the boss's attacking power low. And the helpful thing about that is that since that is on your healer, this is essentially the team I showed you at first, but I've replaced Aerith with Matt, and I've basically upgraded her Defaith ability. And made it last a lot longer too. So this is pretty much an upgraded version of my first team, except that Matt just doesn't have the healing power that Aerith does. But luckily, you don't really need it. And in fact, I would say that in a lot of ways, and I think especially if my Matt was at level 55, this would probably be an easier formation for me than to use Aerith, because of the way that the debuff increase works off of prime number, and because he has a strong physical attack debuff. I just think that he makes maybe kind of the ideal healer for this. If you have him built out, he's going to serve you even better than I think Aerith would. So I absolutely wanted to show you this team. And of course, very similarly, and I just pulled the lifeguard wraps, so I was tempted to test this. Because I'm not super in love with Matt's LB, whereas I think that Tifa's LB would be really cool in this fight. So I would also, and I think I will probably try and do just a short no voiceover post for this, try a version of this team where I have Tifa instead of Matt. And for Tifa, I'm going to be running the lifeguard wraps and the leather gloves. And I'm going to be running that, and that's basically going to be the same as the gear that I have on Matt for this video and this fight, except that we're not going to have the debuff time increase on our weapon the same way that the prime number does. Really, that's, again, why I think the prime number is more ideal for this fight. And our healing is going to be lower, mainly because whatever the lifeguard wraps ability is called, I forgot what it's like, healing spring or something. Healing summer would make more sense. Anyways, it's a 4 ATB heal instead of a 5 ATB heal, so it's a bit weaker but also a bit faster. And in a fight like this where you don't necessarily need as much healing, being able to put that 1 ATB every once in a while into another physical attack down skill would be great. So I think that Tifa could also be a really great healer for this. I think that Tifa or Matt or fucking even Cloud in some respects, maybe if you have a crystal sword, any of them are probably a better healer for this fight than Aerith. And this is one of the things that makes Matt really hard for this fight, is like, geez, level 50 it does not give me nearly enough HP for stuff like this, but just enough to be able to survive that with enough X shots. But actually, my first team to clear the Iron Giant Ex2 was this one. Not only that, but it was able to beat it in full auto. So let me show you that team, because it's the one that's working the best for me, at least. The fact that I can just kind of run it in auto and have confidence that it will clear pretty much every time on Ex2, even though like Ex2 isn't something that you have to run multiple times. It's just like, I feel like at this point this team has become foolproof. I'm not even necessarily sure that I have to be there to hit the LBs. I don't even think I really have to time them specifically in most cases. This team just works. So, as close as you can come to copying the concepts here, or using your own characters that can do similar things. As you can see, there's a lot of flexibility. I mean, we just saw Matt truck his way through the Ex2 fight. So, you know, you don't need Aerith for this. You don't need Cloud. You don't need the Maritime Sword, because you've seen me beat it without that too. The only thing you haven't seen me beat it without is just Zac in general. And even if I didn't have his new sword, I'd be using the Cutlass. And really, I wouldn't be losing that much by just using the Cutlass. It's not bad. It's not a problem. It's not something that he has to concern himself with or worry about. It breaks defenses just fine, even though it doesn't do the water stuff. I do think it's special. Like, it's still the only water break that we have. We don't even have water breaking materia. But as a water break, it's not that strong, which is a little unfortunate, especially for a weapon skill. And it's kind of niche. I mean, it's got a big niche in that if you don't have the Cutlass, this is a great sword to pull for. It's a little bit inferior in terms of physical defense and superior in another way that is unmatched. So if you don't have the Cutlass, this will still serve you well outside of that, because the Cutlass is probably one of Zac's more useful weapons. Maybe his most useful weapon in a lot of cases. And now I bring you to the final battle of this video. There will be many more to come, so like and subscribe. But since this team is going to be running pretty much in auto without me paying much, if any, attention to it, then I'm just going to go ahead and start doing the outro. So thank you all for watching. Remember to like and subscribe to help grow the channel. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Tell me what kind of content you would like to see, or just say hi. It's all fine. It all helps the channel. I would appreciate it if you left a comment. But even more so than that, if you would like access to the Jackie Fox extended universe of content, including I did a really cool Halloween episode for my channels, a couple channels actually. There's a podcast version and there's a video version, which is kind of light on visuals. It's a stylized copy of White Zombie for the most part, actually, if you've never seen that. Spoilers, I guess. I'm going to be talking about it a lot, actually, through the video as well. But it's a good podcast to just chill and listen to. It will be available on Spotify, but also YouTube. And if you're looking for the links to that stuff, that's going to be in the description. The link tree will have it all. Your one-way ticket to the rest of the Jackie Fox media empire. The Jackie Fox extended universe. Your far plane into... Wait. I don't think they have the concept of the far plane in Ever Crisis. I'm not sure that the far plane is a thing that exists necessarily outside of FB. I don't know. Or maybe it was like borrowed from an older Final Fantasy game that I'm not thinking about right now. I mean, like, it's like there's a far plane in 10, but it's not like an interdimensional hub of Moogles. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I'm lost in the sauce of Final Fantasy content. And if you too are lost in the sauce, you should like and subscribe, my friends. Smash that link and leave a comment. And I will see you in the next one.